Hey, it's Adriana, and this is my video for the Monumentalized European History assignment. So I'm currently in downtown Kingston, and I just came back from our Confederation Park, which is right in front of our City Hall building. And at Confederation Park, we have a special monument of our train line that was commemorated under Sir John A. Macdonald. I wanted to come to this monument specifically because it is in the heart of Kingston, because it is in front of our City Hall, somewhere where a lot of tourists go to, especially if you have been to Kingston. You know, we have our Kingston sign right in front of the monument, so you can't avoid it. And if you have, then I would suggest definitely coming back and taking a read at the plaques there explaining the history of it. So what really stood out to me about this monument was specifically the writing on the side, stating it was in the spirit of Sir John A. Macdonald, which was our first Prime Minister of Canada and who lived in Kingston, Ontario. And to me, what's funny about this monument is that so much has been acknowledged to Sir John A. Macdonald. Now, we used to, in Kingston, have a monument of Sir John A. Macdonald, which is kind of what I want to focus on in regards to this monument of our KNP Railway. Because in 2018, the city collectively decided to remove that monument of Sir John A. Macdonald because of the recognition and understanding of what his cause is to bring the Pacific Railway to life and other railways, and just the overall development of Canada, and Kingston specifically at the time had impacted Indigenous communities. So as I mentioned before, we had a previous statue of Sir John A. Macdonald that was taken down in 2018. And so we continue to question here in Kingston why we continue to represent him and memorialize him in these different monuments, specifically one that's right in the center and heart of downtown Kingston. Now, this monument truthfully represents the origin point, or the marker for the KNP line, which is the Kingston to Pembroke line, or better known as the Kick and Push line. So truthfully, it was just a marker because we had the train station there, and it was a good remembrance of what that train line used to be and what it gave to our community in Kingston, allowing for better commerce, for better travel, and just transportation overall. When you first come down to the monument, that lettering, that wording of "in spirit to Sir John A. Macdonald" is the first thing that pops out. And when you want to learn more about it, you look around the monument, look for some plaques, and it's hard to find. It's right next to a trash can, but there you can see a monument talking about the importance of the KNP line. Yet there's no mention exactly of why there is the wording of "in spirit of Sir John A. Macdonald," which should be the most important part, especially if you're going to have it on both sides of the train. Now, what does this monument exactly have to do with European history, or modern European history? It all truly leads back to when Canada was first colonized, when we first came to the area of Cataraqui, which is now under the consideration of Kingston and Islands. And as I mentioned before, Sir John A. Macdonald, although he was an important figure in the beginnings of Canada, the atrocities that he committed, specifically through the Pacific Railway lines and other railway lines that he was supporting as he was funding the KNP line, we have to acknowledge and consider the harm that it does when we uplift his spirit, especially through a train line that currently no longer runs, that has not truly benefited the city of Kingston or the surrounding area of Frontenac and Cataraqui. I think there could be so many different ways to reframe monuments rather than just to uplift what was intended at first, and truly at this point acknowledge the truth behind the creation of the railway line and how it impacted the surrounding area, the environment, the communities that were living there before us, and the workers who slaved away paving and building those railway lines, working the train lines, versus rather than acknowledging our first Prime Minister, who has been acknowledged all over Canada at this point, especially here in Kingston because he lived here himself, and we still have his house up to keep at this point, which we all find quite hilarious. But, you know, Again, we would rather see the truth come out rather than the uplifting of these figures who brought more pain and suffering to a very important community in this country. At this point, I truly believe we haven't changed how our Confederation Park looks like in terms of the monuments that we keep around, because it's just been such an iconic landmark for us, a tourist attraction that we put even a little tiny train cart in front of the Kingston sign to have people pose in front of, and yet no one really knows why it's there. There's not enough information to truly understand the significance of it, which if we are going to create monuments, there needs to be more thought and effort and more truth behind these monuments. And just to restate, I don't think we need to get rid of the train monument itself entirely, but we need to reframe how we describe the monument itself, how we share public information with the city of Kingston, how we share it to tourists that come by here that are interested in the city itself, who know that this was the first capital of Canada. Now, just to dive back to our modern European history, if it weren't for our French explorer Samuel du Champon, then Kingston wouldn't be where it is today, and we wouldn't have settled here, continuing our fur trades with Indigenous people here, and expanding our territory and colonizing. So everything is tied to when we first colonized Canada. There's nothing in this country that hasn't been stripped away from Indigenous lands, that hasn't been exploited. So with each of these monuments, we have to realize they wouldn't even be here if we had never come to the island and colonized the land. Monuments themselves aren't the issue, but it's how we portray the information that is given to the public. Because this is public accessible information, it needs to be the most honest, truthful form of the events and the figures in these monuments.